G'day everyone! Since posting my last video showing the full tour of my self-converted Toyota Coaster motorhome, I've been getting heaps of questions about how much it all costs. So in this video, I'm going to answer all those questions with a full breakdown of the cost for the entire bus conversion. So if you're thinking about doing something like this yourself, then hopefully this will give you an idea of what some things cost. Or maybe you're just a sticky beak and you're curious to know how much I spent in the last 4 years. Either way, grab yourself a cuppa and get comfortable because I'm going to reveal all the details. So before I talk money, I just first want to extend a welcome to all of the people who are new to the channel. My last video that I posted a week ago has had over 18,000 views already, and my little channel has gained over 400 subscribers in this past week alone, which is just crazy. I honestly didn't think that my build would appeal to that many people because it's an unusual layout, and I know the style isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I've just been blown away by how many people have watched the video and commented on how much they love it. I just want to say that I could never have done this build without the knowledge and tips that I gained from hours and hours that I spent watching other people's videos and seeing how they did their own bus conversions. And it makes me so happy to know that by sharing my own videos now, I can pass on some of my experience and maybe inspire some other people to try different things. So huge cyber hugs and big thank you to everyone that watches my videos and likes and comments on them. It's a lot of work to film and edit these videos, but the response from you guys just makes it so worth the effort, so thank you. Okay, enough of all that. Let's get down to why you guys are here watching this video. Let's talk about money. Now, keep in mind, this is just my experience and I'm sharing what I spent on my bus conversion. Obviously, there are 100 different ways to convert a bus and lots of different styles. There's going to be a lot cheaper options for some things and there's going to be more expensive options for some things. And so everyone's build will be different. And so just because I've spent X amount of money doesn't mean that's what your bus conversion is going to cost. So just keep that in mind. I'm just sharing my experience and what I spent, and hopefully that'll give you some basic ideas about the different costs and what you can expect. So let's start with the bus itself. I bought my bus back in the beginning of 2021 and I paid $15,000 for it. My bus was a 2005 Toyota Coaster and it has the 15B FTE turbo diesel engine in it, which is fantastic, heaps of power. It's really great to drive. She had 385,000 kilometers on the clock, which is a little bit, but it's not huge for a diesel engine, and particularly because it was a school bus right up until the day that I picked it up pretty much. It had been regularly serviced. They have to be inspected every 6 months to be in service as a school bus here in Queensland, so I knew that she'd been well looked after and was mechanically sound and had very little rust, so I think I got a pretty good deal. So $15,000 for the initial bus purchase, and because it was still a school bus, it still had all the seats and everything in it, so I stripped it all out and was basically starting my build totally from scratch. And throughout my build, I kept records of all my expenses. And so I'm going to go through and break them down into categories and show you how much I spent on each category and, of course, what the total conversion ended up costing me. And I'm going to start with the biggest expense of all, and that was the electrical system. Now, I paid almost as much for my electrical setup as I did for the bus itself, but this was something that I always planned for, and I knew that the electrical system for my bus was always going to be the biggest chunk of my budget. Okay, so when I talk about costs for the electrical setup, I'm including absolutely everything. So I have 1,300 odd watts of solar panels on the roof. I have a total of 6.9 kilowatts of lithium iron phosphate batteries. I have a Victron MPPT solar controller, a Victron MultiPlus 3000 kVA inverter charger. I've got a Victron Smart Shunt. I've got a Victron Orion DC-DC charger. And I've also got a Victron Serbo GX monitor with a touch screen that allows me to see all the different components of the system. And also that includes all the things like the CMS cables and power points for the 240 volt side of things, all the fuse blocks and fuses, the breakers, the safety switches, all the cables, the different connectors, the conduit, the lighting that I have in the bus and all the switches for those. It includes the power cord, so the extension cord that I use to plug into shore power, and it also includes the labour costs because I had to pay a professional electrician to do the 240 volt side of the installation, and I also got him to install the solar panels and all the main Victron components. So it includes his labour as well as all the different components I've already mentioned. The total cost for all that came to $14,352.73. So as I said, a big expense and almost as much as I paid for the bus itself. But for me, it was money well spent to have a good quality, safe system. And I've been living in my bus now for 4 months and I am super happy with how it all performs. So I'm glad that I spent the extra money to get a really good setup. So next up is the appliances. Now, I'm not talking about the little appliances like an electric kettle and a food processor and rice cooker and all those little things that I already had in my house and just brought on board with me. I'm talking about appliances that I bought specifically to install in the bus. So it includes my 2 Maxxair Deluxe fans. I've got a couple of Sirocco fans. My fridge is an LG 310 litre fridge, runs on 240 volt. I have a Sphere Caravan washing machine. I have an Origo Metho stove. I have an electric hot water heater. I have a Truma underbunk air conditioner. And I also have an Eberspecher diesel heater. So the total for all that was $7,402.61. Now remember what I said about this being my experience. I chose to install an Eberspecher diesel heater, which is the top of the range model, and that alone cost me a bit over $2,000. Likewise, the air conditioner was about $2,000 as well. So they were the 2 most expensive appliances. And on the flip side to that, my fridge, I only paid about $900 for because it's an ordinary domestic household fridge. If you were to buy an RV fridge anywhere near that same size, it could be up around $2,000 or $3,000. So again, it just depends which appliances you choose. There's a huge variation in cost associated with them. So the electrical system and my appliances accounted for almost half of the entire cost of the build. And another fairly large chunk of the budget was spent on plumbing. So the cost for my plumbing setup includes the water tanks. I have 4 water tanks underneath the bus, 3 for fresh water and 1 for grey water, and there's a total of 230 litres all up. It also includes my kitchen and my bathroom sinks and all the tapware that goes with them. I have a SureFlow water pump and an accumulator. I have a Topogy water gauge, inline water gauge, and it also includes all the John Guest pipe and fittings. I have a couple of HEPFO valves under my sinks. It includes the hoses that I use for filling up my tanks and emptying my grey tank. And also in the plumbing category, I've included my Nature's Head composting toilet. Although it's technically not connected to any plumbing, people tend to think of the toilet as being part of the plumbing system, so I included it in this category. And the total for all that came to $4,380.71. By far the biggest component of that was the Nature's Head toilet. I think I paid about $1,600 for it. Okay, so I've talked about the electrical and the plumbing side of things, and now I'm going to move on to some of the parts of the build itself. So I'm going to start with the insulation, which is the category that I spent the least amount of money on. In my bus, I had 2 main layers of insulation. I used foil board sheets in the cavities of the walls and the ceiling. I used mostly 25mm thick sheets, and I also had some 15mm pieces over the windows that I was covering at the back of the bus. And the second layer was a metal and thermal break, so I bought a big roll of that from Bunnings. So the cost for the insulation includes the foil board, the metal and sheets, the foil board spacers that I used, and all of the insulation tape as well. So all up, the amount I spent on insulation was $1,157.11. Now, not surprisingly, in terms of the materials used in my build, timber was the biggest expense. So it includes the 18mm marine ply I used on the floor of the bus, as well as all the other plywood I used to line the walls and build cabinets, etc. It includes the pine lining tongue and groove boards that you see lining the walls on the inside, as well as the shiplap boards that I used on the ceiling. It also includes all of the lengths of dressed pine that I used for framing out my bed and my cabinets and all the furniture inside the bus. It includes the timber bench tops and the panel that I used to make the table, as well as the dowel that I used for the curtain rods and all of the pieces of trim moulding that I used to finish off the corners of the walls inside. So the total that I spent on timber was $4,890.88. The next category that I want to mention is one that I've called fixings and hardware. This category includes all the nuts and bolts, the screws, the nails, all of the glue that I used, so the timber glue, also the sicker that I used for various things inside the bus. It includes all the hinges and the latches for the cabinets, hooks on the wall, door handles, brackets that I used for shelves and other things, as well as a couple of heavy-duty drawer slides that I used for my guillotine and the binding machine in the bus. And while a lot of these smaller items don't cost very much individually, you do use a lot of them and the cost does add up. In total, I spent $2,317.02 on this category. Next up is the painting. Now this includes all of the paint, so I had Thermoshield paint for the outside roof. It includes the Dulux Precision Undercoat and the wash and wear paint that I used to paint the interior of the bus, and I also used some metal paint on the roof racks as well. It also includes the oil that I used for the bench top and all the timber stains and the sealer that I used to stain the timber on the inside. And as well as the paints and stains, it includes all the brushes and the rollers, the paint trays, the masking tape, the sandpaper, and all the other bits and pieces that you need to do a painting job. And all up for the painting, I spent $1,650.86. The next thing I want to mention is the roof racks. I made custom built roof racks the full length of my bus. So the cost for these includes the steel gutter mount brackets that I bought from Roof Rack World and all of the aluminium C-channel that I used to build the rails. And the cost for this came to $2,331.80. And finally, in terms of components of the build itself, I had a bunch of other stuff that didn't quite fit into another specific category. So this included things like the window seals. I replaced all of the rubber seals in the windows in the bus at the beginning of the conversion. It also included the sound deadener and the carpet that I put in the cab area, the vinyl sheet that I put on the floor in the main living space. It includes the cost of the mattresses. I had 2-piece mattress custom made from Making Mattresses for my bed, so it includes that. It also includes the foam mattress that I used for Pepper's bed at the front. I've included all of the plastic storage containers that I used as drawers in my cabinets in the bus, the insect screen mesh and the Velcro that I used to make the screens on the windows, as well as things like the felt that went underneath the toilet slide and the foam padding that I used around the piano and things like that. And the cost of all that was $3,377.72. One other category that I wanted to include in the total cost was the cost of tools. Now, I was lucky because my bus was parked on my parents' property the whole time I was doing the build, and my dad already had a lot of tools that I was able to access and use. But there were some tools that I had to buy and a few others that I wanted to buy to make the jobs a lot easier. So during this build, I bought a table saw, a miter saw, a jigsaw, various saw blades. I needed to buy a couple of different size hole saws, some ratchet spanners, wire cutters and crimper for doing my electrical stuff. I had a pipe cutter for cutting my plumbing pipes. I bought a couple of Kreg jigs, which just made doing pocket holes and cabinet hinges and things so much easier. A couple of squares, some drill bits, and a caulking gun. And all up, I spent $1,992.57 on tools. And the final category that I want to mention is vehicle modifications and certification. So in this category, I've included a couple of custom upgrades that I did to the bus where I didn't do the work myself. I paid other people to do it, as well as the cost of the various certifications that were required as part of the build. So this included the cost of the window tinting. I paid about $900 to get my windows tinted. I had a custom rear storage platform built on the back of the bus. That was about $2,800 odd. I also had the GVM of my bus upgraded to 5.4 tonne, and part of that was the requirement to get airbags suspension on the rear axle. So I've included the cost of that all up for the suspension upgrades, and the certification for the GVM change was about $1,600. And finally, the cost of the certification that I had to get when I pulled out all of the bus seats and converted it from a 21-seater bus to a 2-seater motorhome. So it was the mod plate and the certificate for the seating change and the motorhome compliance paperwork and the certification that allowed me to register it as a motorhome. And I paid a bit under $500 for all that. So all up for this, I paid $5,875. So all up, everything I spent on the build came to $49,729.01. And then when you factor in the initial bus purchase cost, which was $15,000, the grand total cost to build my home was $64,729.01. So there you have it, guys. The whole project has cost me almost $65,000. It's a lot of money, and it's certainly the most expensive, biggest financial thing I've ever done in my life. Was it what I expected to pay? Not really. When I first bought the bus, my original budget was $50,000, and that was for the bus purchase itself and to do the fit out. And I honestly thought that I would be able to do it all for 50 grand. In the end, I've ended up spending about almost $15,000 more than that. There's a few reasons for that. The big ones are that I actually ended up putting quite a few extra things in this bus that I wasn't originally intending to include. So, for instance, with my electrical system, originally I only had 2 batteries, and I decided sort of partway through to add a 3rd battery, and that 3rd battery alone cost an extra 2 grand. And then there were things like the GVM upgrade. I wasn't originally planning to do that, and so that was about $1,600 extra for that. The custom rear step storage platform that I had built on the back of the bus, that was something I decided to do towards the end of the build. That was again almost $3,000 for that. And also I wasn't originally planning to install an air conditioner, so that was kind of a last minute add-on as well, and I paid almost I think a bit over 2 grand for the air conditioner. So if you add all those things up, it comes to about $8,500 worth of extra things that I wasn't originally planning to put in the bus. And on top of that, you know, you have to factor in that over time the prices of things go up. It took me almost 4 years to build this bus, and in that time the prices of timber and other building materials just went crazy. COVID kind of happened just before, around about the time that I bought the bus, and so, you know, everyone knows after that the price of things just went nuts. And so over the last 4 or 5 years I've seen the price of timber even almost double in some instances, and all the price of all the other building materials has gone up as well. So that's something that was just out of my control. If you were able to do the conversion in a really short space of time, that wouldn't necessarily be such an issue, but because it took me so long, I was continually having to work and save the money as I went along, so it took me a long time to finish the build, and obviously in that time the prices of everything just went up. So it is what it is. You just need to expect that it's going to cost more than you think it will, and to sort of factor in a bit of a buffer into your budget. I'm still really happy with what I paid to do this project. Could I have done it cheaper? Absolutely. You can certainly convert a bus for a lot cheaper than what I've done. It could also have been a lot more expensive if I'd paid somebody else, like a professional, to do the fit out for me. It could easily have been double what I paid. So I think I've got a nice middle road. Given the amount of stuff that I put into the bus and the quality of the components and the materials that I used, I think I did pretty well for the price. Certainly a lot less than I would have had to spend if I bought a block of land and built a sticks and bricks house. So I'm winning and I'm debt free. And the bus has actually been valued at significantly more than what I've put into it, so I'm very happy with the final outcome. So that's it, guys. I hope you found the video useful. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. Like I said, I'm only sharing my experience, but hopefully it just gives you some idea of what things can cost, and it might help if you are planning your own build in the future. And if you haven't seen my last video and you want to see what $64,000 actually gets you, then check out this video where I do a full walkthrough tour of my finished bus.